Hey everybody, welcome back to the Film School podcast. I am dropping this special episode for Halloween. It is my favorite time of year. I love horror. It's my favorite genre. And instead of doing a traditional interview or thing like that, I'm going to actually break down my top 5 horror films of 2022 so far. Look, a lot of people have said it already. I'll go ahead and add my hat into the ring. I think 2022 is one of the best years for horror that we have had in a very, very long time. And I've said on this show before, if it's your first time tuning in, I'll say it for the first time for you. I love periods in film history, in any genre. I love periods that are rebellious to the period that came before them. And so when you look at the reactionary period of the 60s and 70s to the very homogenized film of the 50s, when you look at the way that the early 80s kind of carry that tradition on, and then you get this very traditional glossy blockbuster feel, and then you have the 90s, it gets even glossier and glossier, and then you have the early 2000s, you have torture porn and Eli Roth hitting the scene and James Wan and all these guys really just pushing the envelope as far as they can go. And I think we're in one of those periods again now. So over the last couple years, we have had superhero fatigue going on, at least I have, but I feel like in general, there's a lot of audiences who are, disappointed in kind of the routine and the style of, I think it's phase 4 of Marvel. And, and again, I think all those movies have their place. I'm not the Francis Ford Coppola type that's going to say, hey, they're just roller coasters are fun. Okay. So cinematic roller coasters can be a lot of fun, but I've been waiting and waiting for the dam to burst and for filmmakers to really rebel against safe PG-13 action filmmaking. And we're really in this period now. You're seeing this really get ushered in, not so much in horror, but you're seeing this when it was announced that Blonde was going to have an X rating. Babylon, the new film by Damien Chazelle, is at least getting pushed for an X rating. So you're seeing some mainstream films really pushing the envelope as far as what you can show, what you can do. And of course, horror is also going to be on the cutting edge of that. And this year has had some shocking horror moments. I'm blown away by some of the things that have been shown on big screens across America. And we've gotten some really good films. Like a billion people have said it. Horror fans are eating well this year. I think this is probably the best year of horror maybe in the last decade. I mean, it's pretty insane, the quality of each of these films. So I'm going to give you my top 5 of films that I've watched so far in 2022. Of course, I haven't seen every single thing that's come out, but I've seen a good amount. I've done some repeat viewing of some of these projects. I've loved them so much. And so I'll go ahead and start with number 5 and work my way through this list. Sitting in spot number 5 is Halloween Ends. Now, I'm well aware this is probably the most controversial film of the year, but I have to say, I absolutely loved it. I loved Halloween Ends. I know that might be cause for some of you to stop this episode right here, but I watched it on Peacock when it dropped with zero expectation. I loved Halloween 2018. I thought it was a fantastic addition to the series. It's high up there in my ranking of the overall series. And then Halloween Kills was a brutal letdown, with the exception of that amazing firefighter scene in the beginning. But I was coming into Halloween Ends really, the fact that I wasn't in the theater opening night kind of tells you, I was not super thrilled. I was not super excited. The trailers didn't do anything for me. And then I watched it on Peacock, and within the first 10 minutes, which if you've seen the movie, you know what those are, I was absolutely hooked. I love Halloween Ends. It's a very unique approach to the franchise. It gives us a little bit more delivery on what sequels like Halloween 4 kind of promised us, and I think it did it very effectively. And so in my ranking of the overall Halloween franchise, I have it in at number 4. So in my ranking of the franchise is probably super controversial. I've come to realize that my opinions on the Halloween franchise are the most controversial opinions of any movie opinions that I could have. My ranking of the franchise in my top 5 is Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie, Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, Halloween 2018, Halloween Ends, and then Halloween 4. I don't even have the first Halloween in my number 1 slot or even in my top 5. I'm so sorry to all the John Carpenter fans out there, but Halloween's a franchise I really think came into its own after the original. Again, I really like when the sequels push and do something new, whether that's Rob Zombie really pushing hard into the family aesthetic of what was hinted at in the original Halloween 2, or Halloween Ends, which, I think really for people who really love the idea of it being the shape versus being focused on who it is, Michael Myers, Halloween Ends really is faithful to that. And I think the fact that it played into this idea of evil takes many shapes was really interesting. And I think there's a lot of room to play in that regard. And I honestly think, Jamie Lee Curtis, that send-off was really positive after a disappointing Halloween Kills. So Halloween Ends was definitely there, and it plays really well on the big screen, I have to say. Speaking of movies that play well on the big screen, I could not do a top 5 for 2022 without mentioning Terrifier 2. Now look, Terrifier, the original Terrifier, when I watched that movie, it wasn't for me. I felt like it wasn't, I didn't gravitate toward it the way that so many did. But I remember as I watched the film going, I would love to see this filmmaker and this premise given a little bit more of a playground to play in, because I think taking it outside of this smaller environment and seeing Art really get to have his big Freddy Krueger moment would be really impressive and really cool. And so when Terrifier 2 was announced, I was very hopeful. I was excited to see what Damien Leone would do with a slightly bigger budget and slightly more locations, a bigger cast. And then I saw the runtime and was like, man, I hope this is going to be good. Will this premise last? And to be honest, it felt like the shortest movie that I've watched this year. It was absolutely incredible. The pacing was phenomenal. Art the Clown is one of the most ferociously original, brutal slashers that we've seen in recent memory. I hope they give us 10 more sequels. I absolutely loved every second of Terrifier 2. And what I loved most about it was how it played in theaters. I made the crazy decision of asking my mom to go with me. So I texted her, I was going to go. My wife was not in. I texted my mom and I was like, you want to go see a movie? Which she's always down for. And sitting next to her and watching her react to everything was super worth it. And also just seeing a theater full of people just losing their mind at some of these extended, gory, brutal scenes in Terrifier was a lot of fun. And so Terrifier 2 for me is the closest I think a modern film has come to capturing that Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors, like just exciting, fun aesthetic, while also having that brutality that would come in like a, like almost like a Saw movie or something. It's just such a very weird movie. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. So Terrifier 2, definitely there in spot number 4. And honestly, in any other year, it would be in the number 1 spot. But this is also the year that gave us Pearl. Look, it's funny because, X and Pearl both came out this year. I had the privilege of talking with the cinematographer of both of those films, expressing how much I love those projects. It's rare that we get to see a film and its sequel play within months. It's a surprise sequel, surprise trilogy now. Pearl is amazing. Mia Goth's performance in that movie is, the best performance of the year, I think. She's absolutely incredible. The way that the story is told is beautiful. The cinematography is amazing. It's this lush Wizard of Oz feeling movie, and absolutely loved it. I went to go see Pearl several times over the last year, and look, I'm not the person who usually is rushing. Like, I'm usually, when I see movies in theaters, I go in, I see it once, and then I go try to see the next thing so I don't miss anything. But there were so many movies this year that I went to go see over and over again. And Pearl was one of those. I went to go see Pearl 3 times in theaters. Every time it played, absolutely gangbusters. And look, Scorsese likes it. So if you don't like Pearl, I'll stick with Scorsese. Number 2 is Barbarian. This is another film that I did not expect to like. Again, I'm not typically negative in the sense I'll go watch something because I think I won't like it. I'll usually just skip it if it doesn't look like it's for me. And I don't know why, but I just saw a lot of comments. My wife was super interested in seeing it. And then I saw just a lot of dialogue happening around the film. And then I think it was Casey Tebow, maybe Joe Lynch. There were a couple directors that I really liked. They're taking a lot of movies. And they were saying how good it was on Twitter. I was like, I got to see it. And so I went to the movie. From the trailer, I expected just to be this basic home invasion type generic movie. I didn't expect anything special from it. And when that shift happens and we get into that second act, I was blown away. And there were so many shades of Hills Have Eyes and Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, which the director cited as an influence. And if you have seen Dead Alive, you probably know what that influence was. But it just was an absolutely amazing roller coaster of a ride. And literally I got out of the movie and I called my wife. I was like, I need a cigarette because that movie just rips. It's so good. And I went to go see that 3 times as well. It was so fun watching different audiences react to it for the first time. So Barbarian easily earns its place in number 2. And number 1, the biggest surprise to me of the entire year is X. Ty West's X ripped my brain apart. I went to go see it, a couple times. Absolutely loved the movie. Went to go see it expecting a kind of like the new Leatherface movie. I expected it to be kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque. Nothing really super interesting. It might just be like a different take on that kind of aesthetic. And could not have anticipated what it was going to be. Was not familiar with Mia Goth at all. And she was mind-blowing to me. Jenna Ortega was amazing in that. Everybody in that cast bringing their A-game. Seeing Brittany Snow in that role was so shocking to me. The cinematography was beautiful. It's one of the few films that's set in a retro time period that didn't just add lazy film grain. Like, it really captures the feel you get watching Tourist Trap or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And X it was one of those movies where it was the first time in a long time that I was watching a movie in a theater and thought, this is why we go to the movies. Like, this is the style of film that I want to see when I go out to a film. And it's brutal and it's aggressive and it's stunning. It's just amazing. And it birthed Pearl. I mean, the fact that we have 3 movies now in this universe is really exciting to me. And it was a perfect way to kick off what I think is a great year of horror. And so, it's been a roller coaster of a year. Let me know, what are your top 5 favorites? What is something you think I should have had on my list? What's something you think shouldn't be on my list? Just keep it positive, keep it happy in the comments. But share with me your thoughts, your disagreements, your strong agreements, whatever you want to include. And I can't wait to read all the comments on this video. If you're listening on the podcast, head over to YouTube, drop a comment, go over to social media, hit me up anywhere. You can find the Film School podcast. And I look forward to talking to you guys again really soon.